Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
This is Josh Doctor, that podcast where we bring a tank to an X fight, because this week we watched The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar.
Written by Steven Moffat.
Directed by Hetty McDonald.
It aired on September 19th and 26th, 2015.
Legitimately almost called up The Doctor's Apprentice for a second.
Yeah. Well, more like Missy's Apprentice.
Well, she's the witch.
Yeah.
For whom Clara is the familiar.
Yeah, really weird dynamic there, I guess.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, first we have some other things to explain. So if you remember back to a line or, something I said like in passing, just a throwaway line last episode, was that we might be changing the format of the show.
A throwaway line that I completely forgot existed even when I was editing the episode.
And lo and behold, here we are a week later, changing the format of the show.
Not even that much, though. I mean,
no. I think this is something that we, tried to do, that we sort of test ran, at the beginning of the 11th Doctor's era, except we, didn't go about it in, the best way.
We didn't really go as far as we're going now, either. We just kind of said, we're going to make it more structured, and then we sort of made it more structured. And
for 5 episodes.
And then it was still kind of structured, but still pretty similar to the old way. And now it's just a lot structured, but also still pretty similar to the old way.
Yeah, so essentially, we're going to have formal sections now.
That we're probably not even going to officially announce, except for the end segment. The only one that has an actual name.
Oh, well, the quotes section has a name. The sonic screwdriver section also has a name. Those are the names of those sections. Let's just explain this in order so it's not as confusing. So we're going to start with the production info like we normally do.
If it exists. If it doesn't exist, we're just going to stop mentioning it, because otherwise it just becomes, well, there's no production info this week.
Right. And then we're going to go into a summary of the episode, again, as we have done for the past 290, however many episodes. 260. Well, that's numbered episodes. We have 30 extra episodes.
Oh, that's right.
So we're going to do that. It's going to be more structured because we actually are now forcing ourselves to write summaries. We're not going to read our written summaries verbatim, but we're going to use them as outlines.
Yeah. Mine's more of an actual outline. So
I'm not even looking at mine. So, I wrote mine, but still winging it, but at least I have it in the back of my mind.
All right. But along with that is for once we've actually planned where our, not tangents per se.
Not necessarily.
We've planned where our, I guess, discussion of the things that happen in the episode occurs. When we tried to do this in the 11th Doctor's era, we just said we'd shove them all at the end after the summary, and that worked for about 3 weeks. Before we just went back to the old way, which is just shove it wherever. But now we've actually planned out what we want to say, so hopefully it's more thought out and coherent.
And again, we're forcing ourselves to write things down for these so we don't go I had something to say here, but I forgot what it was. Let me look at my notes for 5 minutes and
forget what it was still.
Yeah.
And then, once we finish the summary, which is probably still going to be the bulk of the episode, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
We're going to go into the quotes section.
Yeah, the quotes section, right. So we've done quotes in the past. We tried to do them per doctor. So we had a quote section every couple of months.
It didn't work out, and I know I personally just forgot to take quotes for at least half of the 10th Doctor's era before I was like, shoot, that's a thing we do.
Yeah, so now we're going to be forcing ourselves to write down quotes every episode, and I already messed this up. I didn't write down any quotes for this one.
Oh, man. We're off to a great start. I did say literally yesterday.
The only place we can go is up.
I did say literally yesterday you could just steal some of mine and no one would even know. But now that you've said it, it's out there.
Maybe I'm lying. But no, we're going to have a quote section, and then we're going to have a sonic screwdriver section. So if you don't know, we have a sonic screwdriver count on the website.
Which hasn't been updated in 3 months.
Yeah. But we're just going to be mentioning every time the Doctor uses the sonic screwdriver, or I guess now the sonic sunglasses, to get out of the situations that he
The sonic shades.
Sonic shades, whatever. To get out of situations that he's in. Or into situations that he isn't in yet.
Right.
Or just like cheese his way like through locked doors and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a death count on the website, but we opted not to include that.
Yeah, because I think that just gets tedious.
Yeah.
And how many people really care about like how many people die? It's really just there for the diehard fans who want to know why Barbara's the biggest massacre of the first Doctor's era.
Those Morphos, first companion and first main character, including the companions and the Doctors, to kill on screen.
Yeah.
Well, technically not on screen. We didn't see her kill the Morphos. We just saw her like wind up to smash their tanks.
We did see her smash one of the tanks, I'm pretty sure. And I'm pretty sure in the next scene they're like, man, we killed all those Morphos. What story were the Morphos even in? This is a tangent. I don't remember.
Can't remember. It wasn't the Dalek and
was it the Space Museum? No.
I don't know.
That was the one where they jumped the time track.
No. Yeah, my guess was way worse. It wasn't the freaking Dalek invasion of Earth. No, I don't remember at all. Anyway, we have one more section after the quotes.
Which is a good lead-in from Barbara being a mass murderer, because that's a repeated meme in Trust Your Doctor lore, if I'd say.
Yeah, so we've decided to creatively name this section the Meme Flow Analog, where we'll be talking about, the various memes that Trust Your Doctor has sort of accrued and spat out there.
Wow, you make it sound so exploitative.
Hey man, we're just adding to the digital refuse of the internet.
Now you no longer have to self-track all our memes. Now we do it for you.
You ever play that game where it's like, I forget what this is called, but I played it recently actually. It's this guy in like a cauldron. And he has a pickaxe.
Ah, yes, getting over it.
And like the farther so you're basically this guy in a cauldron trying to get up a mountain with a pickaxe. And like once you start, making your way up, the creator of the game, who's this Australian guy, starts having this
party or something.
Yeah, there's this voiceover, from him, and he's basically talking about like digital entropy.
Kind of reminds me a lot of Frog Fractions.
I forgot about that game.
If you haven't checked out Frog Fractions, you should go play it. That's all I'll say. It's best played unspoiled.
Yeah. Well, you have to tell people to go down at the beginning. Otherwise, you'll just literally play this fraction game for like 20 minutes.
You're right.
But no, at the end of the game, you have to digitally sign this thing that says, like, I solemnly swear I'm not streaming or recording this in any way and won't distribute my gameplay of this game over the internet.
Yeah, well, that only assumes that if you get to the end.
Yeah. Anyway, we have this section, the Meme Flow Analog, so we're going to be going over memes such as Steven Moffat does blank. Let her /him/it go, Russell T. and or Steven Moffat. Yeah, that one. That's a big one. Tagana is a big one. Just essentially the things we reference and just won't stop referencing.
Right.
They're going to be thrown all here at the end.
Things like Tagana are things that might naturally come up in discussion as well, though.
Yeah, sure.
We also completely forgot to mention the actual very first second segment after the sometimes there, sometimes not production segment, which is our overall impression of the episode segment. Because that was another thing we noticed, is that we'd kind of just throw that in like wherever in the episode. Like, yeah, I liked this at like random times in the episode, and we figured it might be good to put it right at the top so people know going into our discussion whether we liked it or not.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to tell. Sometimes it's sort of an enigmatic thing, I guess.
Maybe. I feel like it's just it allows you to be more well-informed going into our discussions if you know whether we like it or not.
Yeah, it allows for a deep dive into our psyches. Kidding.
I don't know if I like our audience diving deep into my psyche. Well, on that note...
Here we go. Production information for these two episodes. They ran out of Daleks, and they stole some from the Doctor Who experience. That's actually why they closed the Doctor Who experience. No, that's
no.
not true at all. They actually closed it because it wasn't making any money. I think.
I believe so, yeah. Although it was a popular attraction within the fandom.
Maybe it wasn't making any money because they took away some Daleks to make this.
I'm gonna guess that that's not it.
No, yeah, me too.
And that's it for production information.
Yeah, that's all I could find.
So our overall impression of The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar.
Better than anything in the last 13 weeks of Doctor Who. So
yeah, I enjoyed this episode.
I liked this
episode, sorry.
Yeah. I liked the second one a lot more than the first one.
Oh, I was kind of the inverse. I liked the first one a lot more than the second.
The first one had a lot of fan service garbage, as we'll get into later on, in my opinion.
I didn't feel like it had that much. My reasons for liking the first one over the second one is that I just felt like the first one moved at a snappier pace than the second one. Although, don't get me wrong, I liked both of them quite a bit.
Yeah, I like both of them as well. Can't go wrong with the Master / Missy and Davros.
Well, you can.
Well, yeah, you can. This episode didn't.
Terry Nation tried damn hard to do that. So I guess that begins the summary, because there are actually, we should mention going into this, there are two, I guess, quote, prequels, unquote, to this episode.
I only watched one.
This episode.
I thought there were two, but then I only saw one, in the episode list on Amazon, so I was like, I guess there's only one.
Yeah, there are two. One of them appears I had to look it up. One of them doesn't appear in the Series 9 section, or at least not in the episode list. It's at the end under the extras or something like that.
Yeah, I could have sworn there was two.
Also, which one did you watch?
The one where they build the wells.
Okay. Yeah, there's this other one it's only 2 minutes long, and it's set before the wells one. It's only 2 minutes long. I believe... I'm trying to remember what it was released for, but I don't. It's the Doctor on Karn with the Sisters of Karn, and he's talking with whatever the leader of the Sister of Karn, her name is. And he's like, I need you to take this. And he gives her the confession dials. I need you to give this to someone. And she's like, what are you planning on doing, Doctor? And he's like, look, I just need to get away for a while. I need to go meditate. She's like, hey, you're never safe on your own, Doctor. You should probably travel with someone. He's like, I just need to go and meditate for a while before I go do this thing. And she's like, all right, well, be careful.
So that leads into the 6-minute one where the Doctor is at sort of, it's not a monastery. It's just like a castle.
Yeah, it's like a castle, basically.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's a lord in this castle, though.
Just seems like Bors is kind of in charge. So the Doctor's there. He's trying to meditate, but he's not being all that successful with it.
Well, because the Doctor can never sit still for more than 2 minutes. He basically proclaims that they need a well at this castle and leads Bors outside. It's like, well, dig it right here. I'm really good with water. And then for the next 15 days, they
he makes them build a well per day.
It's implied they dig a well every day, but we only see the final well, so it's
for obvious reasons.
It's kind of just the implication. Then the Doctor says the well needs a visitor center. And Bors is like, Doctor, you're supposed to be meditating. He's like, I am meditating. This is my meditation. The name of this prequel is The Doctor's Meditation. So.
No, so that's what it was.
Wasn't there a little title sequence with the Doctor's Meditation in the front?
I think I remember that.
I remember there was.
Yeah, there was. I just didn't remember the name.
Great.
It was written by Steven Moffat, though. Which, let me just say now that, this is a far cry from Last Christmas. I just somehow can't comprehend, how this and Last Christmas were written by the same guy.
Yeah. It's kind of fascinating how, for us, too, it was, well, for us, it was 1 week between the two of them, right?
Yeah.
We watched them back to back. I feel like if you watched them when they released, it probably wouldn't be so much.
Your burning hatred for Last Christmas, and by your, I mean my, would sort of die down, fizzle out.
Yeah, I mean, it's 8 9 months, basically.
Yeah.
Because this aired in September. Last Christmas was December.
Can't believe we didn't make a, like, last Christmas I gave you my heart joke last week.
It was too low-hanging fruit.
I didn't even think of it. No, it was not for me. If I remembered to make one, I definitely would have.
Well, the Doctor eventually sits down to meditate, and Boris is like, all right, I'm going to leave you alone. So the Doctor's like, okay. And he calls Boris back, and he pulls out his spoon. He's like, fancy a spa? And Boris is like, Doctor! Well, he calls him magician. You got to meditate, you fool. And then he asks the Doctor to tell him the story of why he's there. So the Doctor starts with, well, a long time ago there was a battlefield. And we see the battlefield, and then, to be continued. Dun, dun, dun.
So that leads us into the actual episode itself. We start, I think, on a battlefield.
Right.
On an unknown planet. It looks pretty mismatched. There are, spaceships just carpet bombing everything. And the opposing side is just like, infantry with bows and arrows.
Right. And they're trying to shoot down the airplanes with the bow and arrows.
Right.
So definitely a war that's been going on for a long time at this point. The Doctor says that because we see this kid and...
Kanzo was his name.
Kind of running, and...
The kid is in the middle of a field of hand mines, which are creepy hands with eyes on their palms, sticking,
grab your foot
and just sort of pull you under, which Kanzo falls victim to.
Right, because he's trying to save the little kid.
Yeah.
And then we see the Doctor land, and he mentions that it must be a long war because they're using bows and arrows against airplanes. And the boy's like, help me, and the Doctor's like, I'll help you. What's your name? And he's like, it's Davros. Dun, dun, dun. And then we meet Colony Sarf, the snake person.
Yeah, he's made up of snakes. Or I guess it is just like a colony. It's not a singular thing. It's just like a snake colony that forms this one huge being.
Well, in a way, a colony is a singular thing.
Yeah, but it's not like
the thing being
guy.
The colony.
Yeah.
Yeah. He mentions that they're a democracy later on.
Yeah. So it's looking for the Doctor on behalf of Davros. That's not much of a secret. It doesn't try and keep its master a secret.
But it does visit the greatest hits of Vessel T, because we see it go to the Shadow Proclamation. We see a Jadoon with his helmet still on, because I feel like maybe they didn't have the budget to make the rhino head, so they just made a giant Jadoon helmet instead. We also see the leader of the Shadow Proclamation, which I believe is the same lady as she was in Journey's End. Journey's End.
Looked the same. Then again, that was like a year ago, so hell if I remember.
He also visits the Maldivarium, which is where the Doctor and River Song met up. The 11th Doctor and River Song met up when she had that vortex manipulator.
Right.
And then he also goes to Karn, where the Sisters of Karn are like, you need to leave. So I'm not going to tell you where the Doctor is.
Turns out he's like right behind a rock, like right in the area.
He pops out behind a rock and is like, wow, thanks, sister.
Meanwhile, on Earth, planes have stopped. Clara's in the middle of teaching a class. Poorly, still. She's still on the subject of Jane Austen. She hasn't progressed past Jane Austen.
She mentions that Jane Austen was a fantastic kisser. You have to wonder when that adventure took place.
But outside, planes have stopped. She looks out the window, and there's just a frozen plane.
And she does something that's not really explained for the rest of the episode, but she takes her dry erase marker and circles the location of the plane on the window, and then immediately opens the window so she can look through it, and then we never see the dry erase marker circle again.
I mean, it was just to measure, or not measure, but just to, see whether the plane was moving or not. Because, sometimes things are far away and you can't really tell. It's like if it moved out of the circle, then it was moving.
I guess, but she immediately opened the window, though, is the thing. She didn't actually, check to see if it would move out of the circle or not.
Maybe they
just
didn't have an
the
extra 3 seconds to put into the story. I get where this is,
An extra 3 seconds? The first episode is a minute shorter than the second one.
I get where all this is going. It's not that big of a point. But she gets called in by a unit because they still suck. Apparently they're scraping the bottom of the barrel using Clara as an advisor.
Well, she's probably the only one of the Doctor's companions who's alive at this point in time.
Didn't Unit like wipe people's like all the Doctor's companions' memories or something?
But only the memory of their visit to Unit, though.
Still.
Well, I'm trying to think if any other like companion of the Doctor's alive at this point. Well, I guess didn't Martha join Units? Yeah. Where's Martha during all of this?
Who knows? Donna's alive. Her memory was wiped in general.
Yeah, she doesn't remember anything. Rose is in another universe. And Amy and Rory died in 2000 and something, or 1980 something, or whatever.
Yeah, I guess Clara is the only one who's...
Unless, like, Ian and Barbara survived. They never even 50 years after they got dropped off.
They never even, like, encountered Unit.
Well, presumably Unit brought them in for questioning like everybody else. Tegan might still be alive, actually. She was dropped off in the 80s.
Yeah, she probably is still alive.
Mel might be alive as well. Not that I would suggest Mel is the first call for Unit.
Perry? Yeah, I think Perry would... And Ace, definitely.
Didn't Perry go off with Sabalon Blitz, or was that Mel?
I can't remember.
Oh, shit.
I can't even remember at all.
We didn't see Ace get dropped off, so we don't actually know where Ace ended up, remember?
Dead in a ditch.
Well, she might have got dropped off another planet, like Nissa.
Well, the last we see of her was on Earth, so...
Yeah, and they were walking to the TARDIS to leave.
If you want to look for Ace, look where you last saw her. Yeah. Anyway, none of that's important. They call Clara in, and they are trying to figure out why planes have stopped.
Clara's basically doing all the talking because I guess Unit's actual scientific advisor is like completely hopeless at her job.
Well, they don't even like really need to do any investigation because Missy reveals herself on her own.
This was pretty funny, I think, actually, because the planes are stopped and the science advisor's like, it looks like they're stuck in time. And then they see this, like, disturbance, I guess, like a radio frequency, and then Missy's head just pops out of the visual screen, and Kate's like, how did she do that? I thought she was dead. And she's like, hello, not dead. Surprise. Haha, it's me, Missy.
Yeah, if there's one thing Clara needs to learn about the Master/Missy, it's that she doesn't die. Anyway, she requests an audience with Clara.
She tells them that they'll need 8 snipers, because that's the only way they're going to feel safe talking with her.
Right. Turns out Kate Stewart doesn't let them actually take any action, even when Missy kills a few of their men anyway.
Yeah, probably because Kate realizes that Missy's a dangerous psychopath who'll just murder all of them if they attack her.
Right, so they go do that. They're in sort of an abandoned square, I guess. And Missy reveals that she's looking for the Doctor because she has the, whatever it was called.
Confession dial.
Yeah, the confession dial, which is a Time Lord piece of equipment that contains your like last confession when you think you're going to die.
This comes back later this season, so don't forget about this.
Yeah, so the Doctor gave it to Missy because they're supposed to give it to your best friend.
Right.
And Clara, this was funny, Clara tries to... Missy,
it's a little entitled.
Yeah, well, Missy reveals the best friend thing, and Clara's like, oh, okay, so she tries to take it, and she's like, what are you doing? It's for me.
Clara's like, what do you mean it's for you? Missy's like, I've known him since he was like a child. You've known him for what, like... I mean, in reality, yeah, the Doctor's like, what, 2,000 years old at this point, and he's known Clara for, I don't know, let's be generous and say 2 years.
Yeah.
That's less than 0.1%. It's actually probably exactly 0.1% if it's 2 years. So, of his lifetime.
Yeah, then they shut down any potential Doctor-Missy romance for all the fans out there who were frothing at the mouth, waiting for this to happen.
Yeah, all those fans.
No, I'm sure that this was like a big segment of people,
I'm sure it wasn't, because I'm pretty sure the big segment of people were the ones who were upset that the Master kissed the Doctor in Dark Water.
No, I would assume, I don't know for sure, but I would assume that there was a large amount of people who were like, hell yeah, Dr. Missy.
I really don't think there were. If I remember correctly from when this episode and the last one came out, because I was sort of active on the Doctor Who fandom at that point because of this podcast.
Wow.
Gotta stick with the people who are going to be listening.
Well, that's just one small segment of people who like Doctor Who.
It's a pretty vocal segment, though. So, the unit has this algorithm that looks for mentions of a blue box throughout history. And so Clara tells them not to look for any battles, but to narrow it down to parties. And apparently, in the past, 400 years, the Doctor's only ever been to one party on Earth. That's the least believable thing in this episode.
Guess where it is? Britain!
I was going to say.
But it's in, the year 1100 or something. So they have to travel back in time.
Yeah, because during this, we kind of intercut to the Doctor riding into this... Actually, we don't intercut, do we?
No.
We see Missy and Clara go back in time because Missy's got a time vortex manipulator. Kind of wondering where her TARDIS is at this point. But she beams them back, and they're watching as Bors is like, "Come out, magician, and fight me." And then the Doctor rides out on a tank with a guitar. This is probably...
A guitar.
Well,
yeah.
A guitar, an axe, same thing. This is actually Capaldi's guitar. And Capaldi actually does know how to play guitar. This is also not the last time we see the guitar this season.
Apparently he was in a band with some guy whose name I'm forgetting, but is a game show host in Britain.
And this is probably a good time to have our first interlude, because one, the Doctor's got a new costume that I wanted to talk about. A new variation on his costume.
All right.
Two, I've got another little note that I want to talk about.
Yeah. I have some stuff as well. So yeah, he has this new costume.
Yeah, it's a variation on the old one. The coat is a little looser and a little longer, and it's got one red button on either side. But I guess the big change is that he's wearing a hoodie underneath the coat, and then a
t-shirt. Yeah.
Well, he's wearing a t-shirt and then a hoodie and then the jacket. I think Capaldi really pulls it off. I wouldn't really consider the epitome of fashion to be a hoodie with a proper formal coat over, but like I said, Capaldi's really pulling it off here. Gives off this punk rocker vibe, and I think it really fits this characterization of the 12th Doctor.
Yeah,
honestly.
this is what I meant when I said Capaldi is a return to a much older Doctor, but he's just Matt Smith / David Tennant aged up 20 years.
Well, he's kind of a link between the past and the present, I think, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you have the old, decrepit, Hartnell era. No, I'm just kidding. Hartnell wasn't even actually that old.
Right.
He just had that disease that, took a toll on him or whatever. I forgot what it was.
Yeah, that's a heart disease.
Yeah. No, but yeah, Capaldi definitely has that, cool granddad, vibe.
Well, I like it. I think it works really well. I think he pulls it off really well. And I like that it is kind of halfway between Matt Smith / Tennant and Hartnell and Pertwee, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. Which, speaking of Pertwee, Capaldi's hair is a lot bigger now.
It gets bigger next season, too.
And this was no gradual change like it was for Pertwee. This is a sudden thing.
I think he grew it out, and they just kind of left it and just went with it.
Yeah.
I think they did play into it at the end of the season going into next season, because with Pertwee, I think it was kind of an accidental thing where he's just growing his hair out gradually because it took so long to film the damn thing. But I think for Capaldi, played into it, and his hair gets really big near the end. I like it. I think it's fun. I think Capaldi looks better with long hair, if I'm going to be just straight honest with you. I just don't like the short hair on him. There we go. Gotta be brutally honest here. So the one thing I wanted to talk about in this segment was the fact that the Doctor is referred to as the, quote, magician by Bors, and I guess everybody in the castle, because it kind of sets up this... It's not an explicit arc for this season, but it is Clara's character arc, because in this episode, the title is The Magician's Apprentice, which refers to, I think it's kind of obvious that it refers to Clara, but I guess it could also refer to Bors if you really stretch your mind. But it's this idea that over the course of this season specifically, we see Clara becoming a lot more like the Doctor in all of the bad ways and none of the good ways. So we see her kind of evolve into this. she has the kind of bravado and blind confidence that the Doctor has with none of the planning ability, shall we say. And it's sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean the titles of these two episodes, The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar, and especially with the content of what we're going to be getting into in the second episode, I feel like really sets up this like pull between like, is Clara going to be more like the Doctor, or is she going to be more like Missy? She is teamed up with Missy later on.
Well, that's why the second episode's called The Witch's Familiar.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's definitely... I never realized how, I guess, prescient the titles of this two-parter are in kind of, I want to say, foreshadowing Clara's kind of character arc this season. And I have to imagine that that's intentional on Steven Moffat's part, since he came up with the name of this episode, presumably.
Well, if the Shannon Sullivan site actually had production info, maybe we would know. I'm just kidding. I don't know why I'm throwing so much shade on that site.
And I just wanted to bring up this character arc because I think it starts here, and I think it's intentional that the names of this episode kind of throw you in that direction to watch for it this season.
Even if it's not, that's what it is. So there you go. I also had a few things I wanted to talk about also in relation to the characters. It's just this, I liked this two-parter. It kind of still rubs me the wrong way, though, that like the Doctor Who redemption arc starts with like bringing these classic show characters back, like Davros and Missy.
Right.
It's like, I don't know. It honestly feels like the new series is having trouble standing on its own 2 feet. I mean, I know Missy was a big part of last season, but like, it's like, people didn't really like Danny Pink and that character or that entire arc, and you know what, we're going to give them Davros. People like Davros.
Well, it's interesting because, in the 11th Doctor's era, we got basically no returning villains, like, at all, right? We had the Daleks in Asylum of the Daleks. We had the Cybermen and Nightmare in Silver, and then beyond that, those two villains really only appeared as, like, background characters or secondary antagonists.
Yeah, but then we had the Silence and Kovarian, who kind of sucked at the end of the day.
And what's interesting is that a lot of people consider the 11th Doctor's era, like, more fondly than the 12th Doctor's era, which I think would run counter to your theory that this redemption happens because we're bringing back these classic characters, because the 11th Doctor's era featured... Like I said, the Daleks and the Cybermen were secondary antagonists at the end of the day. They each got their one episode, and beyond that, that was it. But people, like, love that era because they're like, yeah, Matt Smith, yeah, the Matt Smith era, Amy, Rory, Weeping Angels, River Song. And then we get to this, and, like, I guess people just don't remember it as fondly. Even though this era is the one that, we bring back Davros, we bring back Missy. We bring back the Cybermen in, like, a large capacity.
Well, maybe it's just me. I don't know. Maybe people liked Series 8. I don't know.
It's interesting because then, I guess just throwing ahead a little bit, Series 11, when Chibnall comes in, he's like, we're not going to have any returning villains this season at all. And he tries to establish his own characters as well.
Who was it that in the classic show who was like, we're not going to do the Daleks for like the next 6 years?
And then he brought him back like next season when the viewership dropped off. Chibnall didn't want any returning characters this first season, and there wasn't. And
instead we got the Frog.
The Frog is still one of the greatest moments in Doctor Who.
I still don't know what this Frog is all about. I guess I will by the end of the year.
And a lot of people were like disappointed at that because they're like, nah, Doctor Who isn't Doctor Who without the Daleks. And maybe that's the thing, is that at this point, like, Doctor Who has become so inseparable from the Daleks and the Moss and the Cybermen that, like, even if Moffat wanted to, he wouldn't be able to do a season without one of those three because the fans would just, like, be in a huge uproar. I guess you have to wonder how much stake you put in the fans because the people who are being so vocal about it are, like, only a minor fraction of the fandom, but...
Yeah, I mean, of course, there are millions of people who watch Doctor Who when new episodes come out and never post about it online and never discuss it or anything.
Right. It's interesting, though. I'm trying to think if there are any other returning villains this season. Oh yeah, we get the Zygons as well this season, which isn't a spoiler because the episode titles are literally the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion.
Rigsy comes back.
Rigsy comes
returning
back.
character. I mean, I guess another reason why this kind of rubs me the wrong way, and this is something else I kind of wanted to touch on, is that like a lot of this episode, more so the first one, feels just like pure fan service type stuff with like visiting the Shadow Proclamation and like all these other locations, and then of course Davros and Missy.
Well, the thing about the Shadow Proclamation is that was something that was established, and the Malevolarium were things that were established in the reboot.
Yeah, but still, like, calling back to these things, like, let's put them all at the beginning. You know what people liked? These locations. Let's give people what they want.
It's calling back to an era that at this point people like more than Moffat's own era.
Yeah.
Which is actually something I want to talk about at our next stopping point, because I have more to say on that matter, but it requires some more context.
Sure. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I do feel like this episode started to stand more on its own in the second episode. But I guess that also kind of brings me to something else I wanted to touch on here, which is that it really feels like Series 7 Clara is back. And I'm looking forward to this dynamic of, like, is she going to be, you know, more swayed by the Doctor or more swayed by Missy? She feels a lot more heroic in this episode like she did in Series 7. Mm-hmm. And, like, I guess all it took was, like, Danny Pink's death to get her back into the swing of things.
Well, like I said, this is the start of a character arc where she begins to become more and more like the Doctor in all on all the worst ways.
Right.
So, and it's definitely an interesting progression. I think while I was watching it, I didn't pick up so much on it, but like at the end of the season, looking back, I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of like pretty cool, I guess. Missy, I think, just on a final note about returning characters, I think Missy is starting to stand on her own as like separate from the kind of Master Shadow, like John Sim did. You know, like the Doctor, the Master, all the incarnations of the Master are the same character, but I think they all stand pretty much on their own as unique villains. And obviously, like the conception of Missy, I would consider like a new Who kind of creation almost, even though it is just the Master.
Yeah, I would say so. And yeah, I think she's definitely starting to stand on her own. I'm really warming up to Missy's character.
Yeah, like she's great in this two-parter. I love her in this two-parter.
Yeah. Well, there's now, I mean, again, like going back to Series 8, I know I keep harping on it, but like she was so underutilized there. There was so much missed opportunity there. I feel like now, just in these 2 episodes, there's so much like more to Missy.
Right, well, there is.
Yeah.
And it kind of just makes you wonder why she wasn't utilized more last season. In my opinion.
Yeah.
Because she's so great.
Anyway, Colony Sarf shows up.
Right.
And stuff starts going down.
Yeah, he picks up Missy and Clara and the Doctor. Although he's just there for the Doctor, but Missy and Clara are like, well, you have to take us too. And the Doctor's like, no. Then they vote on it and like, agreed. So they take everybody. And some Daleks... Well, actually, Boars is turned out to be Dalek-fied. Boars!
Oh, man, are we putting him on the death count? I guess we should.
Well, we don't know when he was Dalekized.
Yeah, we don't
he might have been before the whole... He might have been a Dalek, like, ever since before the Doctor's meditation. We don't know. It's the thing. So he...
They take them to what you think at first is like a space station.
Right. And they make it out like it's a space station for a while.
Yeah, for like 10 minutes at least, probably.
The Doctor reveals on the way to the space station that he's being called by Davros because Davros is dying.
The Doctor's dying, so they can just be dying buddies together.
Well, the Doctor's really just dying because he's just going to Davros and he thinks he's going to die there, so...
What if this was like the Doctor and Davros, like, fulfilling their entire bucket list? Like, just going on a bunch of wacky adventures together, putting aside their differences and all the hardships they put each other through, and just, like, going on vacation.
Well, that would be terrible. That would just be terrible.
You don't want to see the Doctor and Davros at Disneyland?
No. I don't want to see Davros at Disneyland ever.
Oh, and Disney inevitably owns Doctor Who. Maybe you will.
Great.
I mean, I just said that as a joke, but now that the seed of that idea has been planted in my head, like that's just horrifying.
Yeah,
Like
can you
one day
imagine
the
a
mouse is gonna own Doctor Who?
Can you imagine just a cast member dressed up in like heavy makeup and prosthetics, wheeling around Disneyland in a Davros chair for photo opportunities?
You will tell me the story of every Dalek defeat.
The Doctor is required.
What are some wacky characters they could have walking around the park?
Zygons.
Zygons. They could have them in like in the pond or whatever, or that little mini lake.
Yeah, the lake in front.
The Zygon, they're in the lake.
Castle. You have some Crotons wandering around. They're like the gonk droids of Doctor Who.
So
those would be the funniest, I think.
So yeah, anyway, this place is infested with Daleks, as you might expect from, Davros.
There's a lot of classic Daleks there. They're painted like the classic series Daleks, and they look like the classic series Daleks too. You can actually tell if you look at their... I guess they refer to it as the skirt, but the kind of bottom bit is flat on the ground for the classic ones, and then the new ones have got the little bumpers.
Yeah, so no new paradigm here, unfortunately.
It's kind of weird considering all the like other random Daleks they threw in there, like the freaking special weapons Dalek.
They were running low, okay?
Well, they probably got the special weapons Dalek from
the Doctor
Who experience.
Yeah. Experience.
And they've got the Supreme Dalek.
Is it the Supreme Dalek or the Dalek Supreme? I'm just kidding.
Or the Dalek Emperor, which I think was just Davros in a big orb. Or was that the Supreme Dalek?
I don't remember anymore.
Well, Missy's like, I don't think this is a space station because there's gravity here, so I'm going to open this door. And Clara's like,
first
what?
She's like, I'm going to open the airlock, I guess.
She's like, this might be the day I kill you. And Clara's like, wait, what? Missy's like, gonna open the door now. Whee! And they walk out just like under invisible space. They're just kind of standing in space.
Yeah, I thought this was kind of like the TARDIS, where you can just kind of go outside the TARDIS a little bit, as long as you don't stray too far. But no, it turns out they're actually on Skaro, and they just made the entire planet invisible.
Missy says they brought it back, which I wonder when they're considering Skaro destroyed in this timeline.
I guess
was it by the Seventh Doctor? Or
oh yeah, I forgot.
The Seventh Doctor destroyed it using the Hand of Omega. Then the books retconned that into a planet that they like designed to look like Skaro. But the reboot implied Skaro was destroyed anyway, so...
It must have been the Time War. Or maybe it wasn't destroyed, but like maybe it wasn't like at its former glory, and now it's like returned to peak form.
Maybe.
I don't know. But the planet slowly comes into being visible.
And then Missy freaks out. She's like, oh no, they brought it back. That's not possible. And the Doctor's talking with Davros, and he's like, what's going on? And he looks out the window, he's like, oh shoot, you brought Skaro back. And Davros is like, yes, I did. And the Daleks capture Missy and Clara and kill them.
Yeah.
They just blast them.
This is how they write Clara out.
It would be great, honestly. I'd be like, bravo, Moffat. Bravo, you and your balls of steel. And then we get a cliffhanger where we see the Doctor with the young Davros again.
Yeah, so the Doctor time travels back to when this is a later incarnation of the Doctor.
Well, because the Doctor leaves.
Yeah, the Doctor leaves Davros when he figures out that it's Davros, and now at this point in the episode, he goes back to save his friend, presumably, you think, by killing Davros, because Davros just killed Clara.
Yeah, because he says, I'm going to save my friends the only way I know how, and he holds up a gun, and he says, exterminate, and then it ends.
Yeah. You don't get the resolution of this cliffhanger until the end of the next episode, which is how it always should have been done in the classic show, not in like the first 2 seconds of the episode. And this is also a good way for Steven Moffat to throw in some time shenanigans in this episode. Like this really adds to the episode instead of, how they did it in like Last Christmas and stuff where it like was just kind of there.
Well, so this is where I want to talk about some other things. First off, I think this is a really good cliffhanger because we don't see the Doctor just about to die like every other cliffhanger ever.
We see him about to kill.
Well, it's kind of the opposite. I wrote down that the Doctor's not in peril, and then I put in parentheses, except maybe in peril of losing his morals, which is true. Because he's never killed in cold blood before, allegedly, except for all that genocide he committed multiple times over.
Yeah, and don't forget shooting the Ogrons and stuff like that as the third Doctor.
Good old Pertwee.
Good old Pertwee Gunplay.
That'll be the name of my autobiography. Pertwee Gunplay. So I really like this cliffhanger. And like I said, I like that we don't get the resolution like immediately into the next episode. It's kind of leaves you wondering like throughout the entirety of the second episode what's going to happen and what the Doctor's doing then. If he's actually going to kill young Davros.
Yeah. Or you could just completely forget about the cliffhanger like I did. Despite watching these back to back.
And then the other thing I want to talk about, which is kind of related to what you said about bringing back classic characters, is that I feel like Steven Moffat took the lazy way out here in the first episode in like establishing the Doctor and Davros's relationship by playing footage of all of the previous encounters between the Doctor and Davros. So what I wrote here was that Steven Moffat is taking a shortcut to establishing the relationship between the two of them instead of like actually doing it in the story. He's trying to rest on the fan laurels of like, you all know what Davros is or who he is. You guys all know the interplay between the Doctor and Davros, right? Here, I'll play it again for you so I don't have to do it myself. And, like you said, it's just like, I don't know, it feels lazy and contrived and fan servicey as well. Just like all the worst things that it could possibly be.
Well, I'll say this. I railed into the fan servicey aspect of this story earlier on, but there is like a bright side of that, which is that the show is like now really being gatekept, and it's harder now for new, more casual Doctor Who fans to just jump in, which is a good thing. Don't want any new fans tainting the show.
Well, that's true. That is true.
No, I don't think it's necessarily true. But I know you really do want Doctor Who to just get so self-referential and just, just self-referential that it just eats itself alive. That's what you want, right?
The Ouroboros. Is that how you pronounce that?
Something like that.
I don't know, it just feels...
Orin, you mean? Just kidding.
It just feels incredibly like Moffat is exploiting, I guess is the word. Moffat's
been exploited by Steven Moffat.
Well, he's exploiting the previous encounters between the Doctor and Davros and basically using that as his encounter. It's almost like plagiarism.
There's a lot more to this story than just those flashbacks.
Well, I know. In episode 2, where he actually has the interplay between the two of them.
I'll just go ahead and say this now. This is like the best Davros has been since Genesis of the Daleks.
That's not that hard. That's really not that high of a bar.
But still, you gotta hand it to Steven Moffat and everyone involved.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, that's the conclusion of my whole point.
Feels very fan servicey.
Fan service doesn't have to be bad. Throwback to the 5 Doctors. That wasn't that bad. 3 Doctors was better. 2 Doctors was worse. Day of the Doctor was good, and that was all fan service.
Someone on Twitter pointed something out about the 2 Doctors recently, and I was like, man, I never realized that, and I forgot what it was. But It was amazing.
Thanks.
And I'm never going to be able to find that tweet again.
Well, that's the conclusion of my little point here.
Yeah, thought I had stuff to say here, but I don't.
Oh, okay.
So we're just going to move on to episode 2. The Witch's Familiar. Surprise, the Master isn't dead, / Missy isn't dead. I'll call her
Again,
Missy.
surprise.
Surprise, Clara's not dead, but she's about to be eaten.
Well, Missy says that if they don't find anything to hunt, then Clara's the food.
You think she's just bluffing, or you think she actually would go through with it?
Considering how she tried to get the Doctor to kill Clara at the end, which also might be a bluff.
No, but I mean, I think she would gladly kill Clara. It's just a question of whether or not she would eat her. Wouldn't be cannibalism.
Wow, I have the opposite. I think if she killed Clara, she'd have no problem eating her. I think the question is in whether she'd kill Clara or not.
I think she definitely would, considering near the end of this episode, what happens.
But that could also be a bluff, is what I'm saying. No,
could be.
Who knows?
Anyway, they have some witty banter. This is the scene that establishes that, hey, Clara might be taking after Missy. She might be following in Missy's footsteps.
Well, we get a flashback, another flashback, except this one is to an unspecified time period, because Missy says, and this was kind of cool fan service, because we see, someone dressed up in a Fourth Doctor's outfit running through the shadows, and he goes behind a column, and he comes out, looking like the First Doctor. And then he comes behind the final column looking as Peter Capaldi, because Missy says, a long time ago, the Doctor was escaping from some androids. It doesn't matter which face, because they're all kind of the same.
Right.
And she says, so we'll just use the most recent one. And this is where she explains basically how she survived both this story and the previous one, because the Doctor used a teleport that was built by the same tech as the androids, and he uses, when the androids all fire on him, he uses that to recharge the teleport and teleport away.
Yeah, this also feels really fan servicey. You want explanations for how the Master survived? We'll give you explanations. When that was never really a thing in the past.
Well, there was a couple of times. I still remember when he jumped into the fire and planted a fire, though, and died. That's the most egregious one. The other ones, there was always a really obvious way for him to get out of it. But the Planet of Fire one was he jumped in the fire and we literally see him die. And then later on, he's like, hi, I'm back.
I don't find that egregious, though. I actually find when they explain it egregious.
No,
I think it should never be touched on.
Well, you find it egregious because they never explained it before. And that's just that's the norm now.
Yeah,
that's the norm now.
That's part of it, but I also just when things have no explanation. Anyway, they walk off into the sunset. Just kidding, they actually walk into the sewers.
Well, because Missy's we need a way to get into the
city.
The city. And the sewers are the best way in. So we're going through the sewers. And then when they're already in the sewer, Missy's like, did you know that the Dalek word for sewer is the same as graveyard? And Clara's like, wait, what?
Yeah, so it turns out that the walls of the sewer are somewhat alive. They're dead.
They're failed Daleks, basically.
I thought it was a mass of dead Khaleds type thing. Just kind of melded into one disgustingly.
Yeah, it's the failed Dalek conversions, basically.
Yeah.
It's my interpretation of it.
So they're walking through these corridors, and Missy goes to a thing on the wall. You don't really see what it is, and she's like, oh, that's interesting. What's that? And Clara walks up, and it's a security camera, which she sets off.
Missy's like, I needed you to stand in front of that to call a Dalek down here. She's like, wait, why are we doing that? And she's like, because I'm going to blow it up.
Yeah, the Daleks' first and last mistake is that they... Actually, it's not their last mistake. Their first mistake is that they send one Dalek to deal with this issue.
And then Missy punches a bunch of holes in the Dalek. Not literally punches, but you know what I mean. Using her brooch, which is apparently dwarf star alloy, which can break through anything. The Dalek's like, a couple holes won't stop me. And she's like, oh, but the sewers will. And then all the Dalek muck climbs into the Dalek suit and kills it.
Forgot about that.
Because that kind of sets up how the Doctor saves the day at the end.
So Clara is forced into the Dalek
by Missy with her pointy stick. Didn't she sharpen that stick with a knife, though? Which is...
Yeah, I guess she was just
or maybe she used
whittling.
A rock, actually.
I don't know.
She might have used a rock. Clara gets into the Dalek.
And we see, for the first time, sort of the Dalek thought process of like Clara, when she's inside the Dalek, Clara can't say certain things. They just come out as like exterminate or like a more sinister version of what she's trying to say.
Well, in general, it's pretty much the same, except you say like "I love you," it turns into exterminate, or "My name is Clara," and that becomes "I am a Dalek."
Right. Which this is interesting. I'm going to touch on this more at the end of this episode.
Oh, Missy, that's what I was trying to remember. Missy says something interesting that says the Cybermen eliminate emotion, but Daleks channel emotion. Because when she says exterminate, it fires the gun, and she's like, it's basically their way of reloading, is getting really angry. So.
Right. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Davros are having sort of a heart-to-heart. Davros, we find out, I think we might have found this out earlier actually, but we find out Davros is hooked into the room. He can't move and he can't leave. And he's connected to all the Daleks in the facility.
Yeah, their life force is giving him life force.
Yeah, it looks like the wires he's connected to are like, when you first see them, you're like, are those the snakes from Colony Sarf?
Well, they are.
And it turns out that they are.
But that's after the Doctor steals Davros's chair.
Yeah.
And goes wheeling down to the main room, and he's like, haha, I've got Davros's chair. He's like, I bet you've all had this exact nightmare. We forgot to mention they destroyed the TARDIS.
Oh, yeah.
Allegedly. But the Doctor's wheeling around, and they eventually just capture him again. And then Davros has a scene who's like, you should be honored. It took us forever to find it for you on Skaro. The only other chair. And the Doctor's like, oh, wow, thanks.
Yeah, that's sort of a...
That's a Steven Moffat joke for you.
Yeah, but it's also like this thing of like Dalek utilitarianism, right? They don't have a need for chairs anymore because they can't sit, so they just got rid of all of them.
I guess. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of wonder where they did find this chair, though. Maybe it's from that jail cell they held the first Doctor in billions of years ago.
Maybe, yeah. There was a bench on that cell, in that cell.
Which, thinking back to it, you have to wonder why the Daleks left that bench there. I guess they were all colloids before. Or were they? I always forget that the Daleks and Genesis of the Daleks, like, don't exactly gel completely.
What do you mean? That it's like the lore doesn't fit?
Yeah.
Because, like, it definitely doesn't.
Yeah.
But, like, we're just meant to believe that it all does. So.
Don't think about it too hard.
Anyway, the Davros. Yeah, great. Davros wonders, he's sort of, he's in his dying moments, and he wonders whether he did the right thing. Because really, I mean, when you boil it down, he was trying to save his people, and he says that, like, I created the Daleks to save, us, the Khalids, in the war. The Doctor has this line about, imagine being so scared that you... This might come later, but it's referencing back to this.
I think it was earlier, actually.
But it touches back to like what Davros says here, of like, imagine being so scared that you weaponize...
That you imagine all of your population in a tank.
Yeah, right. And Davros asks the Doctor if he's a good man. And the Doctor foolishly believes all of this garbage.
So we think... Doctor reveals at the end, he's like, I knew all along.
I think he wants to believe, honestly. I think there's some shred of like, you know what? Maybe it has come around.
Maybe. I think he wants to believe, but I think he knows that he can't. I think he just knows that Davros is a maniacal psychopath, basically.
Anyway, Davros wants to see the sunrise with his own eyes.
But he can't open his eyes anymore. So the Doctor... gives him some regeneration energy. It was kind of a big, like, fan outcry from the weird vocal minority of fandom, where they're like, Davros's eyes, and kind of just... it makes sense when you think about it. I mean, he was a Khalid like everyone else, and they all had eyes. Don't see why Davros would be any different.
Yeah, the weird thing is, like, I didn't even think about Davros's eyes being always closed. I thought they were just, like, really sunken and just tiny.
I just never even thought about it, to be honest. It was like never crossed my mind.
Well, he has that like third eye thing.
Well, it was like the Dalek eye, basically.
Yeah. So it turns out that this was all just a big ploy.
To get the Doctor's regeneration energy. And this is when Davros talks about the hybrid prophecy, which is the overarching plotline of this season. Because Davros is like, did you run away from Gallifrey because you're afraid of the hybrid? The melding of two great warrior races? The Doc's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, Time Lord and Dalek. Time Lord blood flowing through Dalek veins because they're extracting his regeneration energy. And Missy busts in and she's like, what are you doing, Doc? And she frees him. The Doctor's like, do you know what you forgot about, Davros? He's like, wait, what? Sewers.
So raw sewage starts to invade the city because Davros is hooked up to every Dalek on the planet.
Including the ones in the sewers.
Right.
Which all get the regeneration energy.
Yeah.
And they're all really angry because they were thrown in the sewers, understandably.
So they, I guess, kill or incapacitate all the Daleks and Davros. I'm sure they don't kill Davros.
Sure they don't kill Davros. But Davros, conveniently, they give themselves a setup in case they want to bring Davros back. He goes, my lifespan is increased by dozens of years by this.
Gotta throw that line in there. Anyway, they're escaping the city and they come across a Dalek.
It's Clara.
It's Clara.
We see it's Clara. I mean, it's not like not like they tried to keep it a secret that it's Clara.
But the Doctor doesn't immediately realize it, and Missy tries to get the Doctor to kill Clara. But Clara's behavior kind of gives it away. The Doctor says Daleks would never say the word mercy and do all this other stuff that Clara was doing.
Right, because she is asking for mercy because she says, please, I don't want to kill you. And the Dalek voice translator is saying, mercy, mercy.
And she's trying to say I'm Clara, but it's coming out as like I am a Dalek.
And the Doctor's like, yeah, I know you're a Dalek. And then the Doctor eventually is like, open your casing. And it's like, I don't know how. And he's like, just think open. Like, wow, Clara.
That wasn't how Ian did it. God dang it.
Is that a reference? Is this whole thing a reference to Ian moving around in that TARDIS?
Well, I'm going to talk about this once we finish the summary in a minute or two of this being like Genesis of the Daleks style remake, reboot type thing. Or like, let's do the Daleks / Genesis again. But we'll get there. Anyway, the casing opens. It's Clara. The Doctor doesn't kill her, obviously.
He tells Missy to run, though. So she runs, and she gets surrounded by Daleks. She goes, I just had a wonderful idea. And then that's the last we see of Missy.
I'm sure she's dead.
Right.
There's no way she could make it out.
We do see Missy die at some point. But when is it? Now I'm going to leave you really guessing like if it's real or not.
Probably like next week.
Now I've really got you.
The Doctor and Clara do escape, though.
To the TARDIS, and the Doctor's kind of wondering how the shred of mercy made it into the Daleks, and he's like, oh, duh. And this is when he goes back to rescue Davros. Oh, he has sonic shades now. He reconstitutes the TARDIS using the shades because he doesn't have a screwdriver because he left it with Davros, young Davros.
Right. Turns out he's more, he prefers wearable tech now.
We should have talked about this. The hand mines respond to sound, so the Doctor uses the sonic screwdriver to create an acoustic corridor between Davros and the Doctor so the mines don't hear him. That's why he left the screwdriver with Davros. That's why he doesn't have it now.
Can't believe you remembered that convoluted explanation.
I wrote it down, so...
Right.
The Doctor then goes back, and then we see him going, save my friends, exterminate, and then he actually shoots all the hand mines. And then he walks away with Davros, and Davros is like, why? And he's like, you've always got to have mercy, little Davros.
Planting that seed in young Davros's mind.
It's interesting because this doesn't conflict with anything we've seen before with Davros not recognizing the Doctor, because the Doctor never gives Davros his name in any of these scenes.
Yeah, and this is also the 12th Doctor who Davros has never seen before.
Which is why in this episode, I think it's kind of cool how Davros, now seeing the 12th Doctor is like, oh shoot, the Doctor saved me when I was a kid. I think that's a big thing that they could have played up.
Well, there is that line, it's kind of throwaway, I think it's in episode 1, where I think Colony Sarf says, he remembers.
Yeah, Davros remembers.
Implying that Davros has now, remembered this encounter and has maybe thought, wait a minute, was that the Doctor?
Well, I just think it's cool how he wouldn't have even known if it was the Doctor or not until now, seeing the 12th Doctor's face, and he's like, oh shoot, that's...
Yeah, but I think the he remembers thing was an indication that like Davros was starting to think that maybe that was the Doctor.
Yeah. Then it ends with a preview for the next two-parter. We're going to be done with the season in 7 weeks. 6 weeks now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Series 8 didn't have many two-parters, so that's the one that got dragged out.
And Series 10 has a 3-parter.
Hell yeah. Anyway, let's just jump into the topics that we wanted to discuss.
Right. You want to go first this time?
Yeah, sure. So I just want to bring up a small thing. In one of the final scenes of the episode, we see a ring on the Doctor's ring finger, which kind of made me remember when Missy was killing some of the security dudes. She was like, yeah, one of those guys had like a ring on, so he obviously had like a family and stuff. I mean, obviously she's just assuming at this point, but like, yeah, he had a family, he had people who, cared for him and whatever. And maybe this, because it's very prominent in the shot of like the Doctor has this ring.
It is actually Capaldi's wedding ring, and he told the production crew that he wouldn't take it off for filming, and they're like, that's fine. That's fine.
It's just a ring.
That was always allowed.
It's one of those, like, can't keep me down moments, and they're like, all right, we weren't trying to.
It is kind of also a throwback to the first Doctor. I don't know if you remember this, and I don't know why I do, but he had that magic ring that could do that magical thing in that one episode.
Which one was that again?
Oh, I don't remember, but he was in the one episode. He's like, I can use my ring to do this one thing. And I'm like, wait, what?
I don't remember that at all. Is that in, like, the Sensorites? Reign of Terror?
Might have been. Something like that. Know. He used the ring for, like, some magic thing in one of those episodes.
Remember that. Anyway, I thought that this, like, very prominent shot of the ring was like, all right, the Doctor isn't alone. He actually does have, like, Clara and others who care for him and stuff.
I don't know if having Clara is a good thing.
Well, time will tell. All right. At this point, Clara's back to her previous form.
It is an interesting shot. I will say that shot is very cinematic.
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to talk about here was the hybrid plot line, which is the overarching plot of the season. Last season we had Missy. That's how forgettable the last season was.
It was heaven. It was people going to heaven.
Yeah, the promised land, heaven.
More religious stuff from Steven Moffat.
That too. But this season we have the idea of the hybrid prophecy, I guess it is. And who is the hybrid? Obviously, in this episode, Davros thinks it's
the Doctor.
Well, actually, Davros thinks it's the Daleks because the Daleks are getting the regeneration energy from the Doctor, and that makes him the hybrid. What's interesting about this plot line, and I'm just going to spoil this, is that we don't actually get like a proper answer as to who the hybrid is.
As it should be.
And I think that's interesting. And the only reason why I spoil it, because typically I wouldn't, but the only reason why I do is because I want to talk about all the possibilities throughout the course of the season as they come up. Because this season poses a lot of possibilities of who the hybrid could be. And I'm bringing this up now because I wanted to specifically mention how Missy kind of references that the reason why she brought Clara and the Doctor together is because she wanted to show her how there's always an enemy inside a friend and always a friend inside an enemy, which could also kind of lead into Clara possibly being the hybrid as both the enemy and the friend in one.
Yeah, which Missy also, is herself. She's, as we get in earlier in episode 1, she's like, I'm the Doctor's best friend. And Clara's like, but you always try to kill him.
Yeah, and she's like, exactly. And that's actually one of my quotes that I have written down is she's going like, you always try to kill the Doctor. He's like, yeah, exactly.
Right. So that actually brings me to what I kind of wanted to touch on here in a big way, which is like genes and memes. Because what?
Genes and memes?
No, I mean, it's like the word meme like comes from, it's actually itself a hybrid word.
Yeah.
Memory and gene.
Yeah.
That's where that word...
I just thought like the rhyming genes and memes was funny, but go on.
That's like a slant rhyme, but...
I mean, you're close enough, though.
Yeah, that's what a slant rhyme is, but... Yeah, so Davros thinks this hybrid thing is like all genetic, right? He transferred like his own, genes to create the Daleks or whatever, and he's like, yeah, now through your regeneration energy in the Dalek like form, we're going to create the hybrid or whatever, the Doctor and the Daleks in one, Time Lords and Daleks in one. Mm-hmm. But what it actually seems like is that this is more meme related than actually gene related, because the doctor, the reason why like Clara has mercy and the reason why the doctor maybe thinks that Davros has actually come around is because like the doctor transferred not his genes but passed down his memes to young Davros when he's like, remember, always have mercy. And that's how we sort of get like, okay, maybe this like sort of seed was planted in young Davros, and when he created the Daleks, this was always lurking there. So, I mean, we've gotten for like the last 10 years of the show essentially like the Doctor and the Daleks are the same, and now we're finally getting like, okay, maybe this is why. Of like the Doctor passed down his memes and helped create the Daleks.
Well, it also kind of jives with a couple of other times throughout the Dalek Davros history with the Davros created Daleks, because originally the Daleks were like colloids in Daleks, and then, geez, that's confusing. Later on, Davros took like his own flesh and grew new Daleks from scratch, and then there was that whole like Dalek civil war in, I think it was Revelation.
It was Revelation, yeah.
Where like the impure Daleks are like getting hunted down by the quote pure unquote Daleks.
Oh man, so this gene thing was always there. Oh my god.
And yeah, that's actually what I wanted to say on that.
Yeah, this was like kind of mind-blowing for me in the moment. As I was watching this, I was like, oh damn. This is like really cool.
It's interesting to think about. Definitely. Yeah, but that completes my my statements.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on one more thing, which is that this episode kind of feels like a remake of Genesis of the Daleks, which was a remake of the Daleks in a way. Like there's that thing of like going through the sewers, which, in the Daleks, they went through the caves or whatever. Mm-hmm. And in Genesis,
a whole bunch of people died just going through those caves. Yeah.
And there are a lot of other similar points, I guess, of like the invasion of the city.
I think it's not as a direct remake as a lot of people expected, though, because I remember going into the season, a lot of people, based on like the production images that were being released and like revelation that Davros was going to be in it, a lot of people were expecting like Moffat to do a more
Destiny of the Daleks.
Yeah, like kind of like a Destiny of the Daleks thing, where it's like just straight remake. And
I don't know. Oh, I thought you were going to go the other way around, because I was going to say Destiny of the Daleks wasn't exactly a remake.
Right.
That was like the one different one, like the Movellans.
I think a lot of people expected Moffat to go for more straight remake, and I think he didn't.
He did the Genesis of the Daleks style, which is like it adds more to the lore and stuff, but it's like kind of the same events.
Genesis, though, was like more of an explicit retconning of the original Daleks, though, whereas this one like still fits with Genesis of the Daleks. It like doesn't retcon anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't even remember what Genesis retconned, but, whatever.
Well, let's not forget that the Daleks used to run on static electricity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I had for this section.
Also, didn't it like the Daleks, weren't the Daleks created to like survive the nuclear fallout and not like to fight in the war or whatever? And like Genesis was like, just kidding, we created them to fight in the war.
All right, but they forgot why they were created.
I don't think they forgot. Terry Nation wrote both of them.
No, I mean the Daleks themselves forgot. If you remember, the original ending of the Daleks was supposed to be that there was what was it? There was like a third faction that was like that the Daleks and the what was it? I can't believe I'm forgetting.
Check out Trash Doctor episode 2.1.
It was supposed to be that. God, I don't remember. Yeah, just check out our earlier episode. There was something like a third faction. It was, I think, actually in the Daleks, you were supposed to find out that the Daleks and the Colloids were not the Colloids, the
Thals.
The Thals. Thank you. Were, the same.
Well,
or did you find? I don't remember. I don't remember anything.
I don't even think they were the same, because I think that in Genesis of the Daleks, the Colloids are fighting the Thals, and whatever, man. Just like the static electricity thing, it doesn't really matter.
Wait, did Genesis retcon the fact that the Thals and the Daleks weren't actually the same species? God, I have no idea anymore.
I don't know. So, Sonic Screwdriver / Sonic Shades, unless you have something else to say.
No.
We have the acoustic corridor, the beginning of the episode. first episode. We have recharging the teleport in the flashback in the second episode. He uses it as a flashlight in the same flashback with the recharging the teleport. And he also uses the shades to summon the TARDIS.
Right. I really like the sonic shades.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're pretty fly shades. They're Ray-Bans, I think. And the Doctor
Gotta get
pulls
that
them off.
product placement in.
It's true. I don't think they ever say they're Ray-Bans, though.
They just zoom in on the logo. No, I'm just kidding.
Much like the tiles in Rocky IV. So quotes. I took down quite a few quotes. 5 of them, actually.
Nice. Making up for my lack of quotes.
Well, so the first one I think is really interesting because it ties into Missy at the end. The Doctor says this on Karn during the first prequel, whatever, which I think it closely mirrors actually what Missy says, the enemy inside the friend inside the enemy, because the Doctor says to the sister, because the sister's talking about how Davros is his oldest enemy and he shouldn't go, and he says, an enemy is just a friend that you don't know yet. Which I think it's interesting. Which I think also plays into, like you said, the Doctor wants to believe that Davros has changed. The Doctor's like, yeah, I just haven't made his acquaintance yet. Sarf says the Doctor is required, which just made me think of Votan. Was it Votan? No. Yeah, Votan. In the War Machines? That was Votan. Votan, right?
Yeah.
Except he says Doctor Who is required.
Yeah. It was Boss in the Green Death.
Boss was better. Missy says death is for other people, which I just noted because I thought it was funny. The Doctor says this line that I thought was really interesting, where he says to Clara, Davros made the Daleks, but who made Davros? I don't have anything else to say on that except I'm going to put it out there.
I mean, I think that touches back to the Doctor influencing Davros with the Mercy thing.
Right. And then when the Doctor and Davros are talking, sometimes he says, I'm not really a doctor, but sometimes when I try really hard, I'm a doctor. And then Davros says, well, so you're going to use compassion then? The Doctor says, always.
Yeah, that's another line about memes of, it's not his genes that make him the Doctor. It's not him himself. It's because he himself is only sometimes the Doctor. It's the Doctor's this concept that, Clara could be the Doctor. He's sometimes the Doctor. Maybe Missy's sometimes the Doctor.
Didn't we get, the Doctor chose the name the Doctor when he ran away from Gallifrey at this point?
Yeah.
We not had that yet?
Yeah, we have.
Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all the quotes.
His real name is obviously Theta Sigma, as we know.
His real name is really obviously...
I mean, duh. Everyone knows that.
Well, so that's all the quotes I have.
Yeah, same here, which I guess brings us to our last segment, the meme flow analog.
Hell yeah, the meme flow analog.
I mean, all I had was Steven Moffat doing Russell T.
Right, with the Shadow Proclamation.
Right.
It's also kind of Steven Moffat does Genesis of the Daleks, though, for the whole story.
Oh, so Steven Moffat does Terry Nation. Interesting. two big contributors to Doctor Who often go by both their first and last name. You don't usually just say Nation or Moffat. Oh, actually, no. You
do just kind of say Moffat.
Yeah, but you don't usually just say Nation.
You also don't usually say Russell or Davies. Most people say RTD or Russell T. Davies.
Or Russell T.
I think we're one of the few people who says just Russell T.
Oh, really? Russell T was I thought it was Russell T.
I don't know, man.
I thought it was Russell T all the way. Yeah, I think that's the only one.
That's the only Trust Your Doctor meme. There's a Doctor Who meme, kind of, where the Doctor asks and answers his own questions multiple times in the story, which is a 12th Doctor specific thing that he's been doing for a while.
Yeah.
And that's it. That concludes this episode. If you have feedback on our new format, especially so if you hate it, but also if you like it, please actually email us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Season 9. Series 9. Same thing.
Tell us what you thought about Season 9,
Yeah, Season 9.
I can barely remember. I think the Green Death was actually in Season 9. And then Season 10 was the last Third Doctor season.
Was
If
it?
I remember correctly. I don't know. Alright, well, Season 7 was the first one. Season 8 was the Master season. Season 9, he had 4 seasons, right? So season 9 came after that.
I thought he had 5.
I don't remember.
Because the Three Doctors was the 10th anniversary special, which was after season 10, wasn't it? And Joe was in that.
Yeah, I guess.
Or was it before series 10? Must have been before.
Well, because Sarah
Joe was in Three Doctors.
Yeah, so that was in season 9. Season 10 had Sarah, didn't it?
Well, no, because... Oh, yeah, you must be right. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're watching Under the Lake and Before the Flood. But until then, the end.